Are you an entrepreneur working in a home or commercial office? Do you know how much time is wasted looking for items daily? Tune in to today's episode to learn tips to better organize paperwork, including your computer's filing system.
Welcome to Biz Help for You with host Candy Messer. Entrepreneurs like to focus on the big picture, like profitability, success, and a smooth-running organization. But there always seems to be those little things like taxes, employee compensation, laws, regulations, and more. Now you can get the answers you need in one place. Join us today as we break it all down for you. Now, here's your host, Candy Messer.
Hello and welcome to Biz Help for You with Candy Messer. Thank you for joining me today. If you missed the last episode and would like to listen to the show, links can be found on my social media pages as well as multiple favorite podcast platforms. If you'd like to receive notifications on when my podcasts have been uploaded, please like and subscribe. This episode is a little different as I've recorded multiple podcasts in one day at an event and didn't have bios to read at that time. So let me share a little bit about my guest today. Eileen Roth is an organizing expert and owner of Everything in Its Place. She is the author of Organizing for Dummies and has been on the Today Show and Oprah, as well as featured in Real Simple, Self, Women's Day, Mental Health, Fast Company, The Washington Post, Chicago Tribune, LA Times, and more. She consults and speaks on all aspects of organization, office organization, time management, home organization, and school organization. Now to the interview with Eileen Roth. Well, hello, Eileen. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm doing well. I wanted to ask you, before we get into any questions we have on the topic, to just talk a little bit about how you got into organizing and helping entrepreneurs.
I actually was laid off twice in the same year, 8 months apart. And I said, that's enough. What am I going to do now? And what I was doing is I was working for association administration firms and doing, I was both an associate administrator and an office manager. And I sat down and I actually used a mind map. And I said, okay, what are my favorite things about jobs I've had in the past? What do I like? And when I did a mind map, and I'd never made one before, it's my first one ever, I noticed that I liked detail and I liked talking with people. So I said, okay, how can I do that? And then I started noticing, I also wanted to work between 9 to 3 because my kids were still in school. They were young. And I noticed that I felt there was an affinity to what was called a brand new profession called organizing. And I thought, I think I can do this. This is what I do. I mean, I organize stuff around the office. I organize stuff for the associations. That's what I do. So I'm going to try it. My father said I was nuts. He said, you don't know anything about running a business. I said, no, but I think I can do this business. And I've been a Tupperware dealer too and a manager. So I'm going to try it. I have nothing to lose. I have no job. I've just lost 2 jobs in 1 year. And they both went bankrupt. Well, actually, the second one, she got a major disease, and he said she had it back out of having any kind of stress. And so she closed down her business. So I started becoming a professional organizer, and I said, I really like this. And it was a while, but I had both the bosses, the CEO and the president of one of the associations I had worked for, both hired me afterwards, knowing what I had done for them in their business, not knowing what I could do professionally, but they trusted that I could do this. And I got file systems from them. Then with the first one, Glenn actually trusted me so much that he gave me an entire association that had just come into the new firm he was working with and said, before my staff even sees their files, I want you to go fix them. And so I totally organized an association without any of his staff seeing it. And then I taught them how to do it. And this is what I actually specialize in, is file organization. I'm very good at it. It's my logical mind. I actually build them with Excel sheets. And so you can see that I'm logical because I'm using Excel sheets, which Google Sheets work just as well. Mm-hmm. So that's how I got into business.
Nice.
And
Well, and some people may be thinking like, okay, I know professional organizers, they go into homes and they help you do all of that, but I haven't really heard of a professional organizer helping someone in business. So like, what do you really do? I mean, I heard you just talk about files and things like that, but what do you really do to help a professional get organized?
that is usually the first part. They don't have a mail system that works. They don't have a file system that works. Their desks are cluttered.
Right?
I haven't walked into an office that isn't cluttered. Um, they can't find things. I've helped
Mm-hmm.
a client. We found an envelope that had been opened, but he left the check in it. He never cashed it.
Mm.
It was just on his desk buried. I had one person, which I really don't like this to happen, but his boss hired me. So when I came in, he was somewhat, have to say a little belligerent, but he wasn't belligerent. He wasn't yelling at me. It's just, I'm not really happy to do this. I said, well, let me tell you, first of all, it's going to save time. And he says, I can find everything. I've got 6 piles on my desk. I can find it. I said, okay, tell me something that's in those piles. So he told me something. I said, okay, now find it. Goes through pile 1 and he can't find it. Gary turns over and goes to pile 2. And he's flipping through and he's looking at me and he's going, I can't find this thing. He comes to pile 3. He still can't find it. He finds this document in pile 4. So at least he was honest because he could have pulled out
Mm-hmm.
any paper because he didn't. And he said, okay, I guess I need you.
Mm-hmm.
And we got him totally organized. That's usually the first step is the papers and the files. Then there are other things from how do they take messages? Where do they put the notes? How do they find it again? There's also time management. It all depends on what a client needs.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's their email system.
Right. It's so true. I mean, we tell people too to have like digital systems too. You don't have to have everything on paper anymore. And people will say, like, I know where it is. It's on my desk. But like you said, they don't necessarily realize how much time they actually waste looking for that document or they're touching it multiple times.
Oh,
And
definitely.
technology could be such a great help. So like what type of technology do you recommend even for somebody maybe to be organized if they're thinking I still have to have files and cabinets and I don't want that, right? I don't want to have to organize that way.
Well, most people now are going towards digital if they aren't already all digital. So you can scan everything to get it in. Most of them need to clear out most of these files. They have papers from 5, 10, 20 years ago that they don't need to keep, that they're still saving. They're saving all their, in the office, they're saving whether it's a home office or it's a corporate office. They have file cabinets up the wazoo in the corporate. But there's also project management too. There's so many things in the office that people need help with to get organized. And it depends on what you have. Most offices use Outlook and Microsoft. A home office, some people are using Gmail. And of course, they have files. I'm working with a client now that we set up the system and then we incorporate what he's already got. So while we're going through what he's got, we're able to toss things that he doesn't need. And he can recognize some of it now himself that, gee, I've been saving this and I don't use it anymore. This isn't, something that I need. It's old, it's past.
Right. So what do you recommend to someone when they're wondering, like, do I really need to hold on to this or should I toss it? Like there's certain things that we recommend too. You should always save your tax returns as proof things were filed, or there's certain documentation you need to keep for a while to support, what you have as deductions. But again, it could be digital. It doesn't have to be paper. But what are the things that you would say, keep, toss, you don't need all of this?
Well, it depends on what business you're in. I mean, if you first question to ask yourself, is it worthwhile? I have an acronym called WASTE, WASTE. So W, is it worthwhile? So is it worthwhile? You're going to use it, is there any information in there or was this just a copy? Did you save 5 copies of this because it was a brochure that you created and it was for a seminar or something and you want to use it for a meeting? Well, if you've got it on the computer, you've already duplicated if you've got the paper copy. So if it's already on the computer, then that's all you need. The A stands for, will I use it again? And this is probably where a lot of people can get rid of stuff. They go, well, yeah, this happened once and it's never going to happen again. Or this is done. I've completed the project, so I don't really need to use it again. And I don't think this situation would show up again. S, can you find it somewhere else easily? So you did something, but then it went on to someone else. So you know that they have a copy of it. or it's as I said, it was a project that's completed. So you really, can find it wherever the main person who did that project, if you were just part of the team, they're keeping it. So, you don't need to have your copy. Would anything happen if you tossed it? So if you really did toss it out, would anything critically happen that says that, I have to have this because something would happen if I tossed it? So that would be your legal documents, things that are required to be retained by the company because of their rules, or things that are legally required to be retained because it's a legal document in some sense, whether it's financial or taxes. And then E, do you need the entire thing? So if you have all the backups, all of the drafts that you did for this, you don't need that. You can definitely get rid of them. But most people have every single thing that happened because heaven forbid that someone asked them a question. So fine, keep it till the project's done. But when the project's done, you don't, once you've finished it, you don't need your drafts at all. They can definitely be tossed.
Right. Well, and just like on a physical desk and lots of paperwork and things, like computers can get cluttered too. So what do you recommend to entrepreneurs too about how to manage the things that they're saving digitally as well?
First of all, your desktop. I see so many, and I'm talking about the computer desktop. The computer desktop, there's so many documents all over it. I don't know how people find things. I really don't. It's like there is a file system for a reason. It usually says documents. And then inside your documents, you need to come up with categories and groups and then file it that way. And then you'll be able to find where it is. Now, worst comes to worst, you put something in the search bar and it'll find it for you. It'll find 20 other documents too that has that same word, but it will eventually find the one that you're looking for. But if you could put it into a category of where it belongs in the first place, then you'll find it easily and save minutes. They say executives waste as much as 6 weeks a year just searching for documents. And if you think about how much time that is, that's a lot. That's more than you get for vacation. So who wants to waste all that time? And your day would go faster. You're more efficient. It goes smoother. So by saving time, you're also enjoying your work more, where you're frustrated when you have to go, okay, where is this thing? It's somewhere on this computer. What did I possibly file it on?
Right. Well, and obviously if you're doing that with your own computer and you're the only one accessing it and your system and, maybe you could find it easily on your desktop or maybe you have file folders, but what about somebody maybe who they're having to collaborate with others and they all have to share, the same kind of storage area, digitally or whatever too? Like, what are the recommendations you would give, for them to have protocols, put in place, or their SOPs or whatever you want to call it, in terms of where they're saving, how they're naming documents, like the naming conventions? Like, do you have tips for that?
Yes, if you're in a collaboration, you definitely want to have some kind of naming, because if anyone's going to change the name, then you're never going to find the document again. You're not going to know what draft you're on if you're working on it together. So usually if it's a draft, you need to, with a group, decide on the name and then just put a number 1 after it and the date. And I put the date in the title when something's changing, because that way, if you've got the date, you can see right away that, okay, this was a previous date, so it must be a previous version. Don't just count on the date that's in the file because somebody else changed it, but you didn't change yours. So you have a different date than somebody else does because that's what it says in the file. But if it's in the name, now you know what it is. But if you write like version 1, you can either put just the number. I mean, for my own personal, and for if it's just your personal, want to work with home office people, you can just use a number because it's yours. But you might want to write version 1, version 2. And if you're in a certain version where you're just changing like a paragraph, I suggest you just go like 2A, 2B. So you know that it's the same, nothing major changes, something small probably.
Well, and when collaborating, obviously we know too, there's cloud-based things, like you could have a cloud-based spreadsheet, right? Or a cloud-based Word document, or there's ones that are saved onto like a server or something too. So like, do you have suggestions for the 2 different ways maybe that people are working? Because when you're collaborating online, a lot of times you could just make the change and everyone has the most recent document. And if you're working in, a document that someone opens and resaves, if you've got more than one person in that, and they're changing things at the same time, now you have a problem, right?
Yes, that would be. So it'd be a good idea to send a note out to say that you've changed it to the whole group, because you might end up with version 2.4 or something, and somebody else did another one. But usually you would, you would have a space of time in between, and it shouldn't be too close. Most people aren't exactly at the same moment saving it so that you would be receiving a new one before
Right.
your change would go through. It'd
Right.
be
Yeah.
odd that you both push the button at the same exact time.
Right. Yeah. I was just thinking, like, if someone opens it, and this happens too, where someone might open a document thinking they're going to work on it and leave it open. Right. And maybe a few hours later, like, oh, they make their change and they make a correction. And then someone else may have opened it to do something too. So that, I think that's where sometimes the online tools are really helpful if you're going to be collaborating, because then it's like in real time and you're all in the same version. But that's not always how people work, especially if someone's not so technology aware and they might be afraid of what might happen to a document if it's in the cloud.
Yeah, so you really have to double check, especially if you've left it open and then been working on it for 15 minutes because you got sidetracked by a phone call or something. So you need to check if another version has come through in the meantime. So
Right.
that you're working on the latest change, because someone may have come up with the same idea that you did and made that change already.
Mm-hmm. So I know we're getting close to the end of time. Do you have like tips or tricks, anything that you want to share that I didn't talk about already because I didn't know the question to ask?
Well, one of the things another thing I didn't even mention at all is even, especially if it's a home office, but if you're in a corporation, if you can change your office, sometimes it pays to pay attention to your layout too.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a cluttered office just because of the way the file cabinet desk you inherited, is sitting. And you can
Right.
actually draw a layout, but particularly in your home office. And I had to do that. I am now sitting in a guest bedroom, but I was in a much larger office. And my husband decided he wanted our model trains in there. And I said, the only way you get it is my desk fits into this office, because I just bought this desk before we got married and I'm not getting rid of it. And it did,
Mm-hmm.
but barely, because as you can see, I've got bookcases behind me. And so much so because it's such a small office that I actually had to use the closet and put file cabinet in there because I still
Mm-hmm.
have some old files that I haven't had a chance to go through and
Right.
and
Well,
get
that's the
them
thing
up.
now, home offices, right? Versus
Yes,
in
more
person,
people are working
regular.
from home or working remotely. So I'm working with a client right now, and we're drawing out each piece of furniture, a foot matching an inch, and
Mm-hmm.
making the furniture so we can figure it out without having to physically move everything around for 10, half an hour until you see what
Right.
fits best, because it's
Mm-hmm.
easier to just draw those things. So that is a great tip, is to figure out your layout, because it can make a big difference in how you are comfortable, how the sun's coming on your computer. It all makes a difference as to how you are sitting in your own office.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. Like, I know the way that I work too. In the morning, I'll work for a couple hours because I'm an early bird. So I'll get a pretty early work. And there's a window in front of me. And when the sun just shines right in my face, I take that break, wait for the sun to move a little bit, and then I can get back to it. So it's almost like a built-in break for me, which is good. As entrepreneurs, we don't always take, those breaks that we should. So
Mm-hmm.
I think taking those kind of things into consideration too, like maybe someone doesn't want the sun coming in that direction and the desk facing a different way would work. With me podcasting, obviously, it's not good to have a window behind you, so it's in front of me. But I think, like I said, organizing is not just about paperwork. It's about the layout, what's going to be efficient. We want to have a productive workplace. And so it's important to look at all of those factors. So I'm glad that you brought that up too. So as we come to the end of this, I would love for you just to share like how people can connect with you if they're interested in learning more, where can they find you, and what type of social media platforms are you on maybe that they could reach out?
My website is everythinginitsplace.net, which is the name of the company, Everything in Its Place, but it is .net, .com, that is owned by one of those actual direct mail companies. So I couldn't fight them. But as far as social media, I'm on Facebook at Eileen Roth, organizer, and the same for Instagram is Eileen Roth, organizer. And on Twitter, it's just Eileen Roth. And Eileen is Eileen, and then Roth is Roth, because a lot of people can't. Eileen is spelled several different ways. So
It
I like to
is.
make it clear that I started with an E. And then, of course, on LinkedIn, I'm also just at Eileen Roth. And then last Pinterest, I'm at Eileen Roth, organizer.
Okay. Perfect. I really appreciate your sharing, and again, this is a little bit different format that we usually have. And so I'm glad that we were able to connect and just, have a conversation as I think of, different things that I think are important for entrepreneurs to understand as well, because as entrepreneurs, we have things we want to do to be productive and be organized. And so I think this is a great topic.
Thank you so much, Candy.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in today. I hope you found this discussion interesting and enjoyed the topic, organizing your office to work more efficiently. Would you please share my show with those you know and leave a review on your favorite platform? I would really appreciate your support. And if you have any additional questions or comments, be sure to reach out to Eileen or send me a message at media@abandp.com. I hope you can join me for my next interview. And please remember, you can connect with me on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And my website is abandp.com. This episode is sponsored by Affordable Bookkeeping and Payroll Services. If you are overwhelmed trying to handle the aspects of your business financially, ABP is here to help. Contact us today to discuss your needs at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.